Jenny from Just Being Me, and you're listening to the Learning to Love Yourself podcast, the show that inspires you to put yourself first.
Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness. Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness.
My very first book, Just Being You, is out soon. It's a guide for anyone who's tired of people pleasing, second guessing themselves, or feeling like they just don't matter. Inside, I share the tools and shifts that help me rebuild my self-belief. Because when you shift your self-belief, well, that shifts everything. If you want to know when it's coming out, I'll drop a link below and you'll be the first to know. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm Jenny Field, the self-belief expert. And today we have the amazing Catherine Cooke with us, who is a divorce coach. Catherine's been on our podcast before, but coming from the perspective of how she got to the place she is, what she needed to let go to be the person that she is today. But today we're talking to her about how does she work her business? How does a divorce coach do what they do? Because it's going to be more than divorce, isn't it, Catherine? It's going to be more about conflict and how we manage that. So welcome, Catherine. Thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So as I say, when we talk divorce coach, is it mostly about conflict?
It's certainly about conflict, but it's also about fear. It's about worries of the future. I mean, the actual divorce process is quite straightforward. It's when all the emotions and the fear and the conflict get in the way of things, because it's highly emotional. I mean, nobody gets married expecting to get divorced. And, you know, whether it's your decision or not, it's not a decision that's taken lightly. The future that you thought you once had, you know, those dreams that you had on your wedding day, and maybe your retirement plans and all of these things, all are suddenly ripped up, and it's frightening. It's really frightening. You don't unless you've been through it before, you don't know what to expect. You don't know what the rules are around it. If you've got children, it's even more worrying because you're worried about the damage on them. So yeah, it's highly emotional, and when we're emotional, we don't always think rationally, do we? And you can feel very, especially if it wasn't your decision, you can feel very let down, hurt, aggrieved, angry, all with good reason. And we can often get into this sort of state of, well, it's your decision. You're the one that's wrecking our family. It's your fault.
So there's a lot of blame that's flying around.
Yes. And then it causes conflict. And then you have these situations where people, you know, just don't speak to each other. And then the lawyers are involved. And it all just can get very, very messy. So, yeah, it is about conflict. And it is about emotions and how you manage them through this.
And I'm just thinking back, because I had a very messy, horrible divorce that went on for a very long time because of all sorts of things that needed to be sorted out. And so that horribleness went on, actually continued. I have children, so it continued for quite a long time afterwards. And I'm as you're sitting there saying, I'm thinking, yeah, there was a lot of fear involved. Yeah, there was a lot of blame flying around. Yeah, a lot of anger, of resentment, but there was also a whole load of grief. I now recognize, I look back and think, yeah, you were grieving, Jenny. Yeah, that was grief process. That happened there. You know, this is 30 odd years ago for me now. So, you know, but it's far more, when we say divorce, it's far more than that, isn't it? Because it's
absolutely
a massive emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, and that's how I describe it, as an emotional roller coaster.
Divorce is a court-driven process. That's, you know, when we say what we mean by divorce is a legal process, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's actually the other part of that process that's all to do with our brains and our thoughts and our emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the roller coaster.
It is a bereavement. It's actually known that it's the second most challenging life event that you will ever go through potentially.
Is it moving, the first one?
No, but moving is very stressful. But the first one is the death of a loved one. And actually, I think the two are on a par, because it is like a death.
Grief process.
Absolutely. And, you know, death of a loved one is really hard, because you've lost that person and you'll never see them again. And that's really hard. But what makes divorce hard, especially if you're a parent, is that you have to see this person again. You know, you have to maintain some kind of contact. And that can be really hard, especially if you're divorcing somebody who was, you know, abusive or really difficult kind of person. Absolutely.
What I want to just put in here in this place is the fact that actually, when I divorced my husband, I haven't stopped loving him. And it was the situation that created this. And I think people often think that actually, when you come to divorce, the love is all just gone. They might think that because of anger, etc., but
yeah,
it's still there.
There's a very fine line between love and anger, isn't there? And when you, I mean, that's what I do a lot with clients who are angry, and you can understand why they're angry. They often have very good reason to be frustrated and annoyed and so on. But when you get underneath that anger, it is usually hurt and grief and sadness. And it's such a difficult, you know, you may have been with this person for 20 years and untangling not just the financials and the legals, but your life and your habits and your behaviors and everything that you've done for 20 years has to be untangled. And that's really difficult. It's like, you know, anyone that's tried to give up smoking or giving up anything that is, you know, potentially addictive, that breaking of those habits is really hard. So yeah, there's a hell of a lot of things that are going on underneath that legal process.
And it's when you see the anger, do you recognize that as a protection, that the anger is there to protect?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's really hard. I mean, I know I can reflect back on my own behaviors when I was going through my divorce, and I'm not always proud of everything that I did. And I know that it came from a place of fear and anger, and it's very difficult to let it go. And sometimes you're even aware that you're doing it, and you know that you might not be behaving in your best way. But it's really difficult because you're in this fight, flight, freeze mode, aren't you? So it's a survival thing. You're genuinely scared of your future. You know, you're worried about how you're going to live. Plus, you're really hurt about maybe a betrayal or the fact that somebody has, decided to just tip your life upside down.
So do you have clients come to you who are the ones that have betrayed or have?
Yeah, absolutely. And and they're often seen as the bad person, aren't they? Because they are the one. And I'm not excusing people who have an affair at all. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do. You know, you really ought to. If there's things going wrong in your marriage, you need to face up to them, deal with them. And, you know, if it's not right, then you end the relationship. So I'm not excusing affairs of any way, shape or form. But the person who ends the relationship is often the person who is seen to be to blame. But they have often, you know, in many cases, they have tried to have discussions. They have tried to express their needs. They've thought about it a lot. It's not been done on a whim. In some cases they haven't, you know, and they've gone completely the wrong way about it. But that, you know, they're equally finding it hard. They often bring with them a lot of guilt. They feel really bad that they are the one that's making this decision. So they are often the people who come to work with me because they're worried about the impact. It's a massive decision. So they'll come to me to help. You know, I help people to do it what I say is the right way. You know, you don't just pack your bags one day and leave. You don't just go off and have an affair. You talk to them, you explain how you feel. And you have to do it with kindness, don't you? It's but yeah, so I have people from both sides. And And I was the one, you know, I didn't decide that my marriage was ending. That was my ex-husband's decision. I didn't want it. And I was really angry at the time, and I was fuming. He was the one that was breaking up our family. But I can see now that actually he did do it in the right way. He did talk to me previously, and I just didn't listen or take it on board properly. But that takes a bit of time, doesn't it? And it takes a bit of working through things to see that.
But listening to that, with that now, could you look back and see that your ex-husband could have done it in a different way that you may have heard?
I think it was, you know, you sort of, with hindsight, it's about being really explicit, isn't it? That just saying something like, you know, I feel like my needs aren't being met in some way, you can kind of, you know, go, well, do you know what, I'm busy, or you're being selfish or whatever. But you don't always necessarily think this could potentially lead to divorce and the breakup of our family. And sometimes it needs to be maybe a bit clearer that just this is how serious it is. The sad thing is a lot of people don't express what they need. They just gradually just become more and more distant. And by the time they actually do have that conversation around divorce, one person has really just gone so far with it all. There is no coming back. And it's a real shame because, you know, if it's dealt with at the right time, when things are going a little bit off track, that it can often be fixed. But that person who hasn't realized the other one's off down the road is really left grieving, and they want to fix things, but it's often too late because it hasn't been.
Because so I was imagining that you get your clients once the divorce has been decided, but it sounds like some are coming to you before they've actually even communicated that to their.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a free Facebook group that anyone can join, and I've got, you know, a few questions that I ask when they join, and quite a few of them join because they're thinking about leaving. And they may join, and then they may come into my group and think, oh my goodness, divorce looks very messy and horrible, I'm not going to do this, and then they go away. And then I often see people coming back, and it'll say such and such a body left the group 3 months ago. And yeah, because it's a huge decision, isn't it? But yeah, people do come into my group considering it. I offer a support package where people can talk things, because I want people to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it can absolutely be the right thing for a couple to get divorced. And I also appreciate it can be in some cases, you may decide to stay with somebody, even though something isn't perfect. There's all sorts of reasons why people do that. But it's about making that informed decision, isn't it? It's like, this is what is likely to happen. You know, this is what divorce is really like. You can do it this way, but if you don't, you know, if you have a lot of conflict, it can end up in the courts. It can be really expensive. It can be very messy. So if you're going to do it, let's do it. Let's try and keep it as kind as possible in the process.
See, I have, when I'm working with my clients who have generally got some sort of trauma, whether that's from toxic relationships or, you know, abusive childhoods, or they've got some sort of trauma in their background. They might not actually know that until we recognize it, because I know that I didn't recognize a lot of my own trauma. But when I'm talking to them, I can very generally, there's something between in their relationships that's not working. And most of the time it's about understanding actually how to have a clean conversation with somebody, to know that you can say, these are my needs.
Yeah.
Your needs too.
Yeah.
My needs. And so many people don't know what their needs are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's bashing around in them. And I don't like this when that happens, but they don't stop to find out what their own needs really are and how they'd like those fulfilled. And once you've worked that out, which is a lot of what I do, and I'm guessing that's a lot of what you do.
Yeah.
Once you understand your own needs and how to communicate them in a non-blaming, non-judgmental way, then the relationship changes massively.
Yeah, it's about being able to express boundaries and express your needs. But so many people are, and we've all got an element of this sometimes with us people pleasers. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't like conflict because we've not been taught or had it modeled to us. You take your communication strategies from your parents and the way that they communicated, and if they weren't great communicators, then you've not had that model to you, have you? So and that's some of the work that I do when we get to a stage where, especially when it's parents and they're arguing all the time, or there's stonewalling and nothing can get sorted because there's so much emotion and so many ineffective communication strategies that it's affecting the children. So I also work with those parents as well to help them to have better communication strategies. But if you could learn some of those communication strategies much earlier on, it might salvage some of the, or it would prevent you from going, because I think we probably can all recognize that we've maybe been in a relationship at times when we were younger that wasn't right, but you just keep going thinking that things are going to get better, thinking that things will change, thinking you can maybe change them, and you can't change people, can you? But you can, it's
the only person you can ever change is you. One of the things for me, having had the trauma in my background, is working forward and identifying that actually I need to put myself first, because the majority of the population of the United Kingdom do not put themselves first because it is considered selfish. And actually, as human beings, that's what we need to do. It's that old thing in the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
Ever since I've been putting myself first, I have much better relationships. Because people know where my boundaries are. They know how I want to be treated. And, I can remember having conversations with my now husband, who I'm very happily married to, and having conversations and him going, I didn't know you felt that way. And I'm sitting there going, how does he not know I feel that way?
Yeah.
Then I'm thinking, well, because I haven't told him, because actually it's all bouncing around. In my head, I feel like this must be oozing out and be so obvious.
Yeah. Or we kind of, we might sulk about something. We're upset about something.
Or bang around the kitchen.
Yeah, it's the classic. Are you all right? Yes, I'm fine. And not expressing those needs.
Absolutely.
And you think, well, it's blindingly obvious because you said this, and then I got upset. So you must know that I was upset about it. And I think, perhaps I'm being a little bit stereotypical, but especially men need to be told, but quite explicitly, that really upset me. But it's about how you express that. If you use that blaming language, you did this, you did that, then they're immediately going to get defensive.
And isn't it interesting that you did exactly what I do with my clients, is the fact that, you need to own your feelings. So when you're talking to somebody, it's I feel.
Yeah.
This happens, I feel. When this happens, you make me. That finger comes out and immediately the other person's going to go on the defense.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're sharing your feelings, and identifying that this is how you feel, it might not be how somebody else feels, but this is how you feel.
Yeah.
And that's valid, isn't it?
Yeah. But you have to be in a calm place to do that. So you have to equally learn to manage your feelings. So if at that moment you're feeling angry, upset, whatever it is, you have to go away. You have to deal with that first. And that's what's so difficult in divorce, because there's so much going on. It's not just like, and arguments in themselves can be horrible, can't they? But you can sort of recognize that maybe we've just had a bit of an argument. I'll apologize, he'll apologize, and everything will be okay. When you're getting divorced, it's like this constant, there's no fixing it. It's just, you've got to go through this, and it can last months and even years in some cases. So you've got to learn, and you've got to manage those stress levels. It's so
managing that on top of this new life you've suddenly got to work out.
Yeah. And juggling the kids and work and everything else.
There's all the other stuff that you used to do as a couple that all of a sudden, the other day I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I have no idea which day our bins go out on. That my husband does bins. It never comes, God, if he were to ever leave me, I wouldn't know what day the bins. And that's such a basic thing, isn't it? So you've got to find out what day the bins go out on. If you've moved house, you've got to find out what you put out in your bins in what there's so much you have to learn to do that isn't necessarily about the divorce.
Exactly. And one of the big things is finances. And if you don't know, if your ex-spouse has done all the finances and you haven't got a clue how much your mortgage is, how much you pay on council tax, all of these things, no wonder that adds to the fear as well, because it's like, well, I don't even know all of these things. And that is a big worry for a lot of people. About
it's a massive time, isn't it? It's a massive time when you're going through grief.
Yeah.
Whether you like the person anymore or not, it's still grief. You're still losing. You're losing life. You're losing your safety. It's still a loss, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a massive time. So, any top tips for somebody that's maybe thinking about going through the divorce procedure?
Well, if you're thinking about it, well, then you need to make sure that you're fully informed and you know exactly what you're getting into. And, I would say, come with me. I do it like just a few sessions. We can really unpick what is this salvageable or not. Because I always say, if there's anything you can do to fix things, fix it. But if it's not, then how are we what can you do to prepare? Because there's lots of financial information that you'll want to be gathering to make sure that when you do leave, you've got all that information. But it's also about planning, how are you going to have this conversation? How are you going to say it? When's a good time to do it? Because you want to make sure that conversation goes as well as possible. And I help people to plan all the possible reactions, because people are often surprised. They expect a certain reaction and then they get a completely different one. Like they kind of go, okay, right, whatever. And they're like, what? But actually they're just thinking
all the tears and what have you, and it's just okay.
That sometimes comes a bit late. It comes a bit later. So it's about helping people to be really prepared in terms of, this is what you're going to be facing. Let's think about how we're going to say it. What can you do in advance to prepare? Especially if you've got somebody who's very difficult or maybe abusive, you really need to plan that very carefully from a safety point of view. If people are thinking about it, then get as informed as possible and really work out a plan.
And I just want to add to that, the more information you have, the more opportunity you have to talk that through. What happens is your brain already starts risk assessing, because your brain just wants to keep you safe, not happy. That's all it's doing. So it will then start risk assessing. So if you run through in your head any possible outcomes, your brain has already experienced it once. So absolutely. It's easier for it to manage it the second time round. And I know that's something that when I'm working with people who are in abusive relationships and leaving those abusive relationships or have left, the part after is really scary. Because whilst you're in an abusive relationship, you can, to a certain extent, manage your safety because you know what, why, and how things happen. But you're in a place where you don't know where everything is. So actually being able to talk through that, how you're going to do that, where you're going to go, how safe is that, is really, really important, because it allows your brain to understand what's going to be happening. So it's pre-prepared for when it does happen.
And that's why so many people who are in abusive relationships end up going back, because it feels safer, emotionally safer in some way, to be in that what feels more comfortable rather than.
The brain does safety. So the brain just risk assess everything. So if they're looking at, when you come out that first 3 months, that is the most unsafe period. Or if the brain's going, this is not safe, this is not safe, it sees, come back to this pattern. We know how to function in this pattern. As I say, the brain isn't saying, let's be happy. The brain is saying, let's be safe. And safety to the brain is something that it knows how to do already. So it's just on automation. And therefore, that's why a lot of people go back, because it feels safer than those first 3 months.
Absolutely.
So you have to talk to somebody before you leave.
Make
a plan
Yeah, and I would say if it is an abusive relationship, then I would 100% speak to your domestic abuse charity, local domestic abuse charity as well, because they'll be able to really support you with that safety element. But certainly for anyone else who's not necessarily worried about their safety, it's not necessarily abusive, being prepared and planned and an informed decision, really know what you're getting into and how you're going to go about it, is going to make the whole process go more smoothly.
But also I can imagine a conversation with you also gives that opportunity for you to highlight, have you considered this?
Yeah.
And then, you know, that might be as you said earlier on, sometimes people choose to go on with their marriages, even though something's not quite right, but actually considering everything.
Yeah.
Might mean that on balance they go, okay, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix this, I'm going to have a solution rather than just go.
Exactly. And for some people it's just too big a step. It's like, well, okay, well, maybe try this for the next few months and see how that feels for you. I had a lady that had been married for 40 years and she came to the conclusion at the end that actually she ought to leave him. It was a bit of an abusive relationship, but it was too big a step for her. And so we worked on a plan for her to do things a little bit differently, how she could maybe assert some boundaries a little bit more, how she could maybe just start to separate her life a bit and see how that feels. So I'm not here to say, oh, you need to get divorced and what on earth are you doing? He's crazy, leave him. That's not my role. My role is to help you to come to a decision that feels best for you.
And I think with the same with any decision, doesn't matter what the decision is, being informed is the place.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And equally, like people will come into my Facebook group, they will see people in some awful situations, but not all divorces are like that. It doesn't have to be like that. It is totally possible to have amicable might be a bit of a stretch because there will always be a bit of conflict. But if you've got two decent people who are maybe just behaving a little bit irrationally because of fear and everything else, it is possible to have a separation and a divorce that is doable without causing massive conflict. And I'm particularly passionate about it not affecting the children, because people think that people stay in unhappy marriages for the sake of the children. But actually, it's not divorce that damages children. It's the conflict and the tension and all of this around them that causes the problem.
So my parents stayed together and they should have got divorced many, many years ago. They stayed together and we lived through all of that conflict and tension just constantly. And that, in my mind, was just as, if not more damaging than if they'd got divorced.
Exactly, because they're your role models, aren't they? Absolutely. Of how you handle conflict, what a relationship is like or shouldn't be like.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, what if it was your daughter or your son that was in this situation, what would you want them to do? How would you advise your best friend in this situation?
Yeah.
And
that's a really good thing, to try and dissociate yourself from the emotions and look at it like a fly on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually looking at this, how am I behaving? How are they behaving? What are we going to do about this? And being really honest with yourself, because if you can get yourself to a place of no blame, no judgment, and just look at the situation and see how you want this to be.
Yeah. And that's why I say working with somebody like myself is beneficial, because when you're talking with friends and family, they're a brilliant support network, but they're always going to be on your side, aren't they? They're always going to be, what? How dare he? Oh, you should do that, Whereas actually working with someone like me, I'm always going to be on your side. You know what I mean? It's not about, I'm there for my clients, but I will help them to maybe see another perspective and about, well, actually, let's try and put the shoe on the other foot. Let's think about how we can approach this differently. Because you do get swallowed up in your own thoughts and emotions. And, but you've got to, especially with parents, with kids, let's just step back a little bit. What's going to be the best for the kids in this scenario? Which battles do we need to have, and which ones can we avoid, and which ones do we just need to address differently?
Catherine, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us and giving us that little bit of insight into it all. And obviously we'll put how to contact you down below. But, you know, if anybody wants to talk anything out, come talk to one or t'other of us, because actually just being able to talk those words out makes it far more real, and then it's easier to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jenny. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Good to catch up again.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to know more, you can find all the links down below. Oh, and don't forget to press subscribe so you can catch the next one. See you soon.